From Stephen King's The Dark Tower. Chapter 1, Callahan and the Vampires. Professor Don Callahan had once been the Catholic priest of a town. Salem's Lot had been its name, that no longer existed on any map. He didn't much care. Concepts such as reality had ceased to matter to him. This one-time priest now held a heathen object in his hand, a scrimshaw turtle made of ivory. There was a nick in its beak and a scratch in the shape of a question mark on its back, but otherwise it was a beautiful thing, beautiful and powerful. He could feel the power in his hand like volts. "How lovely it is," he whispered to the boy who stood with him. "Is it the turtle Maturin?" "It is, isn't it?" The boy was Jake Chambers, and he'd come a long loop in order to return almost to his starting place here in Manhattan. "I don't know," he said. "She calls it the school padder, and it may help us, but it can't kill the harriers that are waiting for us in there." He nodded towards the Dixie pig, wondering if he meant Susanna or Mia when he used that all-purpose feminine pronoun she. Once he would have said it didn't matter, because the two women were so tightly wound together. Now, however, he thought it did matter, or would soon. "Will you?" Jake asked the pair, meaning, will you stand, will you fight, will you kill? "Oh yes," Callahan said calmly. He put the ivory turtle with its wise eyes and scratched back into his breast pocket with the extra shells for the gun he carried, then patted the cunningly made thing once to make sure it rode safely. "I'll shoot until the bullets are gone, and if I run out of bullets before they kill me, I'll club them with the gun butt." The pause was so slight, Jake didn't even notice it, but in that pause, the white spoke to Father Callahan. It was a force he knew of old, even in boyhood, although there had been a few years of bad faith along the way. Years when his understanding of that elemental force had first grown dim and then become lost completely. But those days were gone. The white was his again, and he told God thank you. Jake was nodding, saying something Callahan barely heard, and what Jake said didn't matter. What the other voice said, the voice of something, perhaps too great to be called God, did. "The boy must go on," the voice told him. "Whatever happens here, however it falls, the boy must go on. Your part in the story's almost done. Is not." They walked past the sign on a chrome post, closed for private function. Jake's special friend Oy trotting between them, his head up and his muzzle breathed in its usual toothy grin. At the top of the steps, Jake reached into the woven sack Susanna Mia had bought out of Callahan's Sturgia and carried two of the places, the razors. He tapped them together, nodded at the dull ringing sound, and then said, "Let's see yours." Callahan lifted the Ruger Jake had brought out of Calla, New York, and now back into it. Life is a wheel, and we all say thank you. For a moment, the pair held the Rogers barrel beside his right cheek like a duelist. Then he touched the breast pocket, bulging with shells, and with the turtle, the school padder. Jake nodded. "Once we're in, we stay together, always together, with Oy between, on three. And once we start, we never stop. Never stop. Right, are you ready?" "Yes." "God's love on you, boy. And on you, pair. 1, 2, 3. Jake opened the door, and together they went into the dim light and a sweet tangy smell of roasting meat. Jake went on what he was sure would be his death, remembering two things Roland Deschamps, his true father, had said. Battles that last 5 minutes spawn legends that last like 1,000 years, and you needn't be happy when your day comes, but you must be satisfied, or you have your life beginning to, and car is always served. Jake Chambers surveyed the Dixie pig with a satisfied mind. Also with crystal clarity, his senses were so heightened that he could smell not just roasting flesh, but the rosemary with which it had been rubbed. Could hear not only the calm rhythm of his breath, but the tidal murmur of his blood climbing brainward on one side of his neck, descending heartward on the other. He also remembered Roland saying that even the shortest battle, from the first shot to final falling body, seemed long to those taking part. Time grew elastic, stretched to the point of vanishment. Jake had nodded as if he understood, although he hadn't. Now he did. His first thought was that there were too many of them, far, far too many. He put their number close to 100, the majority certainly of the sort pair Callahan referred to as low men. Some were low women, but Jake had no doubt the principle was the same, scattered among them, all less fleshy than the low Falcon, and some as slender as fencing weapons, their complexions ashy, and their bodies surrounded in dim blue auras, which had to be vampires. Always stood at Jake's heel, his small foxy face stern, whining low in his throat. The smell of cooking meat wafting through the air was not cool. 10 feet between at any time. We have 10 feet to give. There, so Jake had said out on the sidewalk, and even as they approached the maitre d's platform, Callahan was drifting to Jake's right, putting the required distance between them. Jake had also told him to scream as loud as he could, for as long as he could, and Callahan was opening his mouth to begin doing just what the voice of the white spoke up inside again. Only one word, but it was enough. School paddle, it said. Callahan was still holding the rouge up by his right cheek. Now he dipped into his breast pocket with his left hand. His awareness of the scene before him wasn't as hyper as alert as his young companions, but he saw a great deal of orangey crimson electric flamboyance on the walls. The candles on each table immured in glass containers of a brighter Halloweenish orange, the gleaming napkins. To the left of the dining room was a tapestry showing knights and their ladies at a long banquet table. There was a sense in here Callahan wasn't exactly sure what provoked it. The various tells and stimuli were too subtle, of people just resettling themselves after some bit of excitement, a small kitchen fire, say, or an automobile accident on the street, or a lady having a baby, Callahan thought as he closed his hand on the turtle. That's always good for a little pause between the appetizer and the entree. Now came Gilead's calm eyes, shouted an excited, nervous voice, not a human one. Of that Callahan was almost positive. It was too bossy. It was too buzzy to be human. Callahan saw what appeared to be some sort of monstrous bird-human hybrid standing at the far end of the room. He wore straight-legged jeans and a plain white shirt, but the head rising from that shirt was painted with sleek feathers of dark yellow. Its eyes looked like drops of liquid fat. "Get them," this horribly ridiculous thing shouted, and brushed aside a napkin. Beneath it was some sort of weapon. Callahan supposed it was a gun, but it looked like the sort you saw on Star Trek. What did they call them? Phasers? Stunners? It didn't matter. Callahan had a far better weapon and wanted to make sure they all saw it. He swept the place settings and the glass container with the candle in it from the nearest table, and snatched away the tablecloth like a magician doing a trick. The last thing he wanted to do was a trip over a swatch of linen at the crucial moment. Then, with a nimbleness he wouldn't have believed even a week ago, he stepped onto one of the chairs, and from the chair of the table top. Once on the table, he lifted the skull paddle with its fingers supporting the turtle's flat undershell, giving them all a good look at it. "I could soon croon something," he thought. "Maybe moonlight becomes me, or I have left my heart in San Francisco." At that point, they had been inside the Dixie Pig for exactly 34 seconds. Here ended this chapter, chapter 1.
Okay.